Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Spacers Hack-Conf 2023. It's a great privilege to be here. I want to especially welcome everyone, especially our participant for the Spacers Hack-Conf 2023. And I'm going to be giving an open address before we start the Spacers Hack-Conf. Today is 14th of October, and we are kickstarting the hackathon today. And we have other activities that's going to run that throughout the week. So if you want to see or you want to know more about those activities, you can head over to the Spacers Hackathon website and actually get this information. So here's me officially welcoming you all to the most anticipated CodeSpace slash Catchbase Hackathon. It's an incredible privilege to stand before you all today and also to witness this day. It's been months of planning, it's been months of putting up so many stuff together. Actually overjoyed that we are able to do this today. Today we embark on a journey filled with passion, determination, and collective brilliance. So I'm actually urging all participants to try their best. Remember, it's a competition, but also it's also a process of you learning at the same time building up your career. So there are so many reasons why you actually need to participate in hackathons and all that. So that's why we at CodeSpace, we are actually putting this together to actually bring out the best from our community. As you all know, CodeSpace is a community whereby we bring in Gen Z founders, developers, graphic designers, and many others together to actually come together in one place where you can collaborate, you can do a lot of stuff, you can actually find your co-founder in CodeSpace. So we are a community with a diverse knowledge in various things, and it's a great privilege to actually be hosting our first ever hackathon. So it's a virtual hackathon. So the whole hackathon process is virtual. So it's a virtual hackathon, like I said. So I want to just say welcome. And before I proceed, I would like to go through a little, like, some few things regarding the hackathon. So this year we decided to host an hackathon in partnership with Couchbase to actually not just because of the competition itself, but for you to also learn. So the hackathon is not just about competition, but for you to also learn as well. We decided to host this hackathon this year. It's our first ever hackathon at CodeSpace, and we are hosting it virtually. This is how the program is going to run. Today we are having our opening ceremony. Then we kickstart the pre-hackathon week. So during this week, all participants are to actually work on their projects, and I don't think that we actually have any activity scheduled for this period because you're actually going to be working on your project during this time. So just feel free, feel relaxed, work on your project, and please follow the rules and regulation governing this hackathon. So with every hackathon, there's always a rules and regulation that each participant has to abide to. So I urge you to actually abide to those rules and regulation, and let's make this hackathon a success. So um, what else? Yeah, so basically, let me just talk a little bit about CodeSpace. So CodeSpace was actually founded by me, Clinton Imaro, in the year 2020. So I founded this community because of, like, yeah, way back then when I started my journey as a software developer, there was nothing like hackathon, or there was nothing like community. So I actually founded CodeSpace in the year 2020 because I saw that there's an importance in community. There's an important, if you want to actually grow in the tech space, you actually need a community behind you. So that's why I actually founded CodeSpace. And with the years, like since 2020 up to now, we've actually achieved great feats at CodeSpace. At CodeSpace, we believe in the potentials of every individual present, and we are not just you are not just participating in the hackathon, like I said earlier. You are the architect of your future. So you have to build your future. And starting with this hackathon, I believe that this is actually the first place to actually start from, like, through a community before you become what you want to become tomorrow. So without saying too much, I think my time is up. Let the hackathon begin. So thank you all for actually participating on this hackathon, and I wish you all the best.
Hello, everybody. It is Spacer's Hack-Conf week. I hope you all are super excited as much as I am excited. My name is Isabella Inawuru, and I will be leading us throughout this session. It's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be exciting. We've promised you a whole lot, and I've been seeing your tweets, your messages, your emails, and everything. It's 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 been months of planning, months of trying to put this together, and today is the D-Day. And so, like Clinton rightly said, one of the reasons why CodeSpace was founded is to build a community that is able to give us a platform, able to give us opportunities. Because when you're starting out alone, it's hard, it's difficult. So it's better you are able to find a community that gives you gives you a platform to grow, to learn, and while you're learning, to avoid mistakes. So we're going to dive right into the program. I'm going to begin by introducing the Spacers Hackathon teams. We had a whole lot of people that indicated interest, but as you know, it's a competition, and along the way, we had quite a number of them that were screened out. Some of them were screened successfully, and these ones who were screened successfully, they are here today in the finals, and they're going to be participating in the hackathon. So we have a. I'm just going to call the final teams. We have Team Elite, we have Team Aya, we have Team 10X, we have Team Space, and Team Favors. These were the ones that made it to the end. Um, if we have this team here, if we have those team here, just I wanted to say drop your favorite emoji, but I don't think that is possible here. But of course, you can just leave your favorite emoji, and probably I would be the only one seeing it. And without much ado, I'm going to introduce the Spacers Hackathon, the Code Space team rather. um as you know, most times we always, oh yeah, I see Team 10X with their favorite emoji, which is a spaceship. Yeah, go code space, of course. So we are going to introduce the code space team. So most times we always see Clinton at the forefront, but of course he has a whole lot of people behind trying to put things together, trying to ensure that things work, and everything is flowing smoothly. First off, we have Precious Kaili, who is also a co-founder, and he's a programmer. We also have Toby the Alpha, who is also part of our team. He's also a software engineer. We have Chigozie Susan, who is our community lead and in charge of the media. And then we have Precious, who is who is also a software programmer. And then we also have on our team Isabella Enawero, which is my very humble self. I'm also a co-founder and content marketing strategist. And lastly, on our team, we have Orelua Odetola, who is in charge of graphic design. So as you can see, we are an all-encompassing team. So it takes more than just the founder. Clinton is driving the idea, and together we are ensuring that things work and everything is possible. And for us to be here today, we have a very able partner, which is Couchbase, who has made this event possible. And it's been months of planning with the Couchbase team. I've had lovely encounter with the team at Couchbase, which we have the person of Nyah Macklin. We also have Lauren. We have Brian. There are a whole lot of fun and amazing people. And I'm sure for the hackathon participants, you already had a 2 day encounter with Naya. I'm sure you've already enjoyed her lovely personality, her sweet and soothing voice. And I'm sure you've already learned and dabbled a whole lot into how the Couchbase system operates and how it works. And so, without wasting much time, we're going to give a little briefing about the hackathon. And after that, we are going to have Lauren, Lauren, who is from Couchbase, give us a brief talk. Now, we have the Spacers Hack Conference. It is a hackathon and conference, which is the hackathon is beginning today. Today is the opening ceremony. Now, on our hackathon, we have our Idea Bank. Our Idea Bank is a list of solutions. As techies, one thing is that we can never be short of problems. And once we have problems, there definitely needs to be solutions. So this is what our Idea Bank contains. Our Idea Bank contains problems which people have made choices of what the problems they want to solve. And on our Idea Bank, we also have a whole list of functional consideration. That is why you are building. What are the functionalities that you need to consider in your product or your solution? We aside from the functional consideration, you also need to think about your UI, which is how people will be able to interact with your platform, be it a web application or a mobile application. Now, this hackathon is beginning from today and it's going to end by 25th of this month. So some of the things that we expect from all hackathon participants is that we do not expect for you to have a perfect product, so to say. We do not expect it to be perfect, but we expect that it should be a minimum viable product. It should show your innovation, it should show your creativity, and more especially then it comes to your presentation skills, because we have a whole lineup of judges, our jury team, and these people are experts in what they do. And we have experts from across all industries, from digital marketing down to UX writing, down to your UI, your programming, which has to do with your codes, and even functionality. Of course, when it comes to judging, we testing whether your products actually work is actually working is key, because sometimes you might have buttons and you might just be like, oh, because I need to put this button because it's going to look make the product look wholesome. But then when you put that button there and it is not working, trust me, it's going to reduce from your points as a team. And of course, you wouldn't want that to happen to your team. So there is a whole lot that judges, our jury team, they are going to be considering when it comes to judging this hackathon. And then once you make your submissions on the 25th of October, we have 26th and 27th for the jury to make their internal decision, test, and ensure that, okay, they look at every bit of your project. And on the 28th would be, that is 28th of October, which is a Saturday, it would be the final judging process where you get to pitch your project. One thing is to build, another thing is to pitch your project. Pitching is the icing on the cake. If building the project and the research and every other thing is the cake itself, then trust me, pitching is the icing on the cake, and it determines whether um, you're making it to the final round or not. And I want that we take pitching our projects really seriously. Think of it like you are pitching to some investors, because you can never tell who is out there watching. You can never tell if anybody is going to love your project enough or even love your process well enough to say, okay, I believe in this team and I want this team to work for X organization. Because while it's just a hackathon, don't just think of it like it's just one of those hackathons. You can have an investor come in and be ready to fund your idea or be willing to work with your team on a project. So, this is me telling you to do your best. Don't just give the average. If you are here, you've made it to this final round, you should give it your 100%. You should give it your all, not just 70, not just 80, not just 95. It should be 100, which is the 100% that you give in. So, regarding the hackathon, I do not know if any of the teams have questions that they you want me to answer regarding the hackathon. This is one of the best times to ask your question before I invite Lauren to the stage. Do you have any question? Okay, I would take it that we do not have any question. So right now we are going to invite Lauren, who is going to be telling us more about our partnership with Couchbase and what you can do with Couchbase. As long as you are a Okay, yeah, Lauren, I see you. As long as you are a developer, you're in the tech ecosystem, trust me, you definitely need Couchbase to work. And Lauren is going to be telling us all we need to know about that. Please, Clinton, invite Lauren to the stage.
Hello, 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 hello. Am I live? Seems like I'm live. Wonderful. Good day, everyone. Let me try to share my screen and I will start by telling you what is Couchbase. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share my screen. It's a bad start, but we'll make it. Hopefully, you see my screen. Yes, superb. All right, so I'm going to try to do a test and see if I can actually. It says loading. All right. And it works. Super. So my name is Laurent Deguin. Hopefully you can hear me correctly. I work at Cashbase as the Director of Developer Relations Strategy. I am very fortunate to be Nyah's boss. And you can find me on several social networks like GitHub or GitLab or Twitter with my handle LDOGUIN. It's not even called Twitter anymore, it's called X. I'm also on Blue Sky and all the other new fancy things. My role as the director of developer relation and the goal of the developer relation team is to, well, build relationship with our community. Um, that means I'm creating content, I'm going to conferences, I'm doing hackathon, and same for Nyah, same for all the people in that team. And we were fortunate enough to meet with Clinton. I think it was in Belgium last week at a conference. So that's one of the cool things you can do when you do this job. And I am really, really happy that I got to meet Clinton. So the reason I'm here today is to tell you a little bit more about Catchbase and why Catchbase is a bit different than other databases. You can think of Catchbase as several database in one solution. We call that a data platform. And the reason we call that a data platform is we do all of the things that you see on the screen. We have an integrated caching system. We have a key value API. If you store JSON document, you can do SQL query, you can do full text search, you can do analytics. Eventing is a little specific. It's about running function that you have written to execute some specific code when something happened in the database. So if someone creates a document, someone updates a document, someone deletes a document. And then we have this far right two project, which is geo-replication and sync and mobile database. That's one of the main difference of Cashbase. We do offline synchronization, which means that if you have an app on your phone, you can have a local database. It's a JSON database that can run SQL. It's not the same thing as we have on Catchbase server. It's a smaller version of that, and it will sync automatically to the server once you have some network. So if you are in some areas where the 4G, 3G, 5G connection is not great, well, with Cashbase Mobile, you always have some data on your phone. You don't have to show a loading screen and all that stuff. The data is on your phone. Once you have connectivity, you can sync your data in and out of the cloud. So that's one of the cool things that you can do with Cashbase. Now, the reason why we did a platform is to give developers a unified way of accessing all those features. Most of the time, people will use different solutions to do cache, to do document, to do SQL, to do full text search or analytics. Our role is to empower our developers to be able to do everything with just one single interface. And that's our Cashbase clients. We support most of the more common languages. So Go, C, Java, .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, Scala, Kotlin, Ruby, those are the most famous ones. There's other that are supported by the community. We have a Rust SDK, that's on the server side of things. And then, of course, on mobile, we support Android, we support iOS, we support, well, actually, those are the two main platforms. So we support Android, iOS, and we support multi-platform technologies like Flutter, like Kotlin Compose multi-platform, and that kind of thing. To give you a quick example of how to create, access, read, documents in Cashbase, these are the three main interfaces that people use. They use key value. So basically, you do CRUD operation, create, read, update, delete. Everything you do starts in RAM, which means that it's very fast. We have sub-millisecond latency. If you do SQL, you can express more thing, more business method, more information into one single query. So you see select a.country from airline A, where e.name equals XL Airways. This will always be a little slower than just doing a key value get, but it allows you to do more. So it's a trade-off. You can choose to have millisecond latency and do SQL queries, or you can choose to have sub-millisecond latency and be fast, but just operate on one single document. You can also choose to do full text search. A full text search is what you have when you use Google or when you use Spotify. It's basically you have one search box, you type something, and even if you do one error, one mistake, Like if I search my name and I've misspelled the last letter, you still get an appropriate result. So that's one of the use cases of full text search. There's other like faceted search. You know, if you're on an e-commerce site and you can tick several boxes, like I want all the sweatshirt that are the color red and the color blue and are available in the size X or XL. That's something you can use with full text search. You can create with full text search. And I haven't talked too much about this, but Catchbase is a distributed database, which means that it runs on several computers and it supports distributed transactions. A transaction in the SQL world or in the RDBMS world, the relational database world, means that when you have a set of operation and that with all those operations you get an error in the middle, you can reverse back to the original order. So basically, to give you a simple example, you're trying to book a hotel room or a flight, for instance. There's only one room, so obviously there's not two people that can book it. Let's say I start at 10 a.m. and someone starts at 10:01. The transaction that we start earlier will complete before the transaction that started afterwards. And if that transaction that started afterwards happens to be on the final step, which is is this room available, it's not anymore because the first transaction was finished. So we can roll back and make sure that we have a state where we don't book the room two times, which is pretty cool and pretty useful. Now, one of the other things that makes Couchbase different, we sort of specialize into syncing data. That's what we've been doing for almost 13 years now. Syncing data means you have a cluster, so a distributed database running on some data center, let's say somewhere apparently in Europe, and then somewhere else in the US, and then somewhere else in Indonesia or in Singapore. And all of those clusters can exchange data or can replicate data. It's pretty important because when you want to be fast with your application, there is one latency that you cannot reduce, and that's the size of the fiber optic between your computer, your connection, and the data center. So if you're based in South Africa and the data center is based in the north of Europe, then you know that you'll have a very, very, very long fiber, optic fiber. So you might as well just synchronize the data and have the data center running closer to where you're doing the connection. Of course, you don't have to synchronize everything. You can choose what is synchronized, which is very important for lots of regulation topics and subjects, or just because, well, you don't have to. Another very important syncing skill that we do, syncing feature that we do, is what I told you earlier, syncing from your phone to the database. We are not the only one. There are others companies that do that. Most of the time, it's just a cache, a local cache. If you use Firebase, for instance, here with Catchbase, it's a actual full local database. That means that if you don't have network, it will always work. And you don't even have to synchronize your data to the server. You can just use a local database. One of the cool things we do is we do peer-to-peer replication, which means that if you're on the same network with your phone and other people that have the same application are connected to the same network, it means that they can synchronize data automatically. So you could very well create a game that runs on your phone, and the game that runs on your phone will be able to synchronize with all the other people that have the same game on the same network. You don't have to go through the internet. So let's say you're in a car or you're in a truck, a bus, and someone creates a local network in that bus. Everybody can connect, and basically you can all play something together without having to be connected to internet, which is nice, really. Of course, you can also connect things to a central server, and every data, every connection that you would send to that server will go through what we call the sync gateway. And the sync gateway is it's basically the business rule and authentication rule that your devices, because I've been saying phone, but it can also be IoT devices like a Raspberry Pi, you have to be authenticated to do that synchronization. So that was the gateway give you. And sometimes you want to synchronize only something, or you want to retrieve only some specific information, and all that logic is built into the sync gateway. So that's one of the pretty cool things that you can do with Catchbase that very few people or other product can do. And the beauty of this is everything is at the same place, which is the whole point of Catchbase. It's a data platform that allow you to use one product to learn one product to do all the things that people usually do with, well, several, like 4 or 5. You can use, I don't know, Redis for the caching system. You can use Mongo or Postgres for the database. People use Elastic for the full text search. They get to use Cassandra for the analytics or Spark. And then for offline synchronization mobile, they would use Firebase, or they would use Realm if they use Mongo. And the more of these things you use, the more complicated it becomes to synchronize. What we do at Catchbase is give you a completely synchronized, completely efficient platform so that you only have to learn one thing to do it. There are several options, several services that are provided. I'm going to start by the bottom. We have a fully managed offering, which Nyah has shown you, I guess it was yesterday or 2 days ago, which is Catchbase Capella, where we encourage you to create a trial. It's the fully managed version of Catchbase. If you don't want to use a cloud version of Catchbase, we have a Kubernetes operator. So if you know how to use Kubernetes, if you have a Kubernetes cluster, you can use our Kubernetes operator to basically run Catchbase yourself. We have customers that run Catchbase on virtual machine. We have customers that run Catchbase on bare metal. I do a lot of tests on my machine, so I usually use Docker to run Catchbase. So you can just type Docker on Catchbase, and it just works. So various way of doing this. Catchbase is open source. There is a community edition, there is an enterprise edition, and there is a managed version on Capella. Then the way it works is you have several services that are available on every single node. That's the managed cache, the fact that we use RAM memory to be faster, that's available on our machine. You get IDCT storage, you get geographical replication that I just showed you before. It shards automatically, and I haven't talked about this yet. If you're not familiar with sharding, sharding is the capacity to write data in several pieces of a database. It's basically decomposing a database into several smaller chunks. And what people usually do is when they write a document, they have to decide on which part of the cluster it goes. Is it going on machine 1? Is it going on machine 2? Is it going on machine 3? Some people have homemade algorithm to do that. So let's say you are storing documents, and the ID of the document starts with A, and let's say that every document that starts with A, B, C, D, E, F, those go on the machine 1. The 5 next letters, those go on machine 2. The 5 next letters go on machine 3. That's one way to do it. What we do at Catchbase is we do this automatically. We choose for you, and we make sure that each time you write something to a cluster, it's equally sharded, which means equally distributed over each part of the cluster. We can talk about multi-dimensional scaling afterward. I think I have a couple slides about this. The fact that we're distributed means that a Catchbase cluster enable you to create high availability architecture, disaster recovery architecture, auto failover. All those things means basically if you have a problem with your cluster, if a machine is failing. If And that actually happened pretty recently. I live in France, in Paris, and in Paris, sometimes there's construction work, and so you get all those construction machines that dig holes in the ground, which is also where the optic fiber is. And sometimes, when they dig a little too deep, well, they break the fiber. So what that means is the data center that was connected to the world with that fiber is not connected anymore. So if your cluster was on that data center, well, it's not accessible to anyone anymore. And that's what the DR stands for. It's called disaster recovery. What people usually do in the cloud, and that's for Couchbase or for anything, they have one version of their architecture on one data center, and they have the exact same copy on another data center. Because if something were to happen, like a construction work and a fiber optic link get cut, then you could automatically use the other version so that you stay online. So that's a disaster recovery scenario example. We have mobile and edge, just talked about this, so embedded local database that sync automatically. And then we have two different things. We have how to organize, store, and process your data. So everything you store can be stored using key value interface. If it's a JSON document, it can be queried in various ways. It can be queried through analytics, it can be queried through full text, it can be queried through SQL. All of this can be transactional, it can be ACID. It doesn't have to be, because with acidity comes another trade-off. If you want to have what we call distributed transaction, it means that every node of your cluster have to agree on the current state of things. So the more machine you have, the more machine you have to agree, and the slower it's going to be. Do you need to do that all the time? Probably not. If you use Twitter, X, you don't really need to have the latest tweet in your timeline. So you don't have to be ACID. What you want is to give your user a fast enough result so that it doesn't get frustrated. And if it's not exactly the last version of the time, it's fine. What we try to do at Catchbase is to empower you with choices. You have the choice to be ACID, you have the choice to distribute your data, you have the choice to use SQL or full text. Every business decision that you will take while creating your application, they are different, and there shouldn't be one database that drives you into pre-made choices. What you need is a data platform that allows you to make those choices, because they can be different for the same application. And so that's what we try to do at Cashbase. I've talked a little bit about multidimensional scaling. This is the slide I was talking about. Currently, Catchbase presents 6 different services. The most important one is the data service. That's where you store your JSON documents. And based on that, we have several services that gets iterated automatically. We have the index service, we have the query service, that bit is for the SQL part of things. We have the full text service for the full text search, the advanced search, like the checkbox and everything. We have eventing, which is executing whatever function you want. And we have analytics, which is basically storing data in a different way so that you retrieve it more efficiently. And what's interesting with Catchbase is that we allow people to choose the size of the node for each services. To give you an example, what's important for the data service is to have lots of hard drives, because you want to store lots of data, and lots of RAM, because the more data you have in RAM, the faster you're going to be. For the index service, it's the same thing. It's storing indexes, so it's storing data. If you want to be fast, you want as much RAM as possible. The query service, however, is a bit different. The query service, it gets your SQL query, and once you have a SQL query, you have to parse the SQL query, you have to understand it, you have to process a query plan. There's a lot of complicated stuff that happens, And for that, you need bigger CPUs. So you know, for instance, that all the nodes on your query service will have more CPU than the one on the data service, and that's fine. It's the same thing for full text, same thing for eventing. Analytics is probably going to be everything, lots of RAM, lots of CPU. You can even have GPU if you want on the analytics nodes, and that will allow you to do machine learning on that data if you wanted to. That's some of the things that are possible with Catchbase. Basically, it's another way to tell you that we let you choose. We give you the flexibility, the empowerment of choosing the exact right scenario because every application are different. Now, if you want to learn more about Catchbase as a developer or as an application builder, we created a bunch of demo application. If it's called the Conduit demo, so it's available on realworld.how. I will share all the links that you see here. But basically, it's a clone of medium.com. So it's a blogging engine. And we have currently 3 official implementation of that. So I don't know what languages you're going to use to build your project, but what we have right now is 3 examples of the same site, basically a blogging engine that allow you to create user, to authenticate, to have security, to like or to follow users, to create articles, of course, and to view and list those articles. So it's a very simple app, and you get the code for all of that. So I think it's a good starting point if you're curious in how to build, I'm going to say, real life Couchbase application. If you choose Node, I know Node is still pretty popular, and a lot of people have experience with Mongo and other databases. There's one project I haven't talked about. It's called Ottoman.js. And if you're familiar with Mongo, you might be familiar with a project called Mongoose, and it's called an ODM, an Object Document Mapper. That's the fastest way to be organized into creating an application with Cashbase when you use Node.js. Ottoman for Node.js, Spring Data for Java. We have Active Record if you want to use Ruby. There's a bunch of other languages. But what I wanted to show you is a fairly simple and easy way to use Ottoman. Basically, Catchbase is a schemaless database. You store JSON documents. And a JSON document, like there's no table, there's no column. Basically, a JSON doc has fields. So you can set a JSON document as its own schema, basically. And what ODM, like Mongoose and Ottoman, allow you to do is to declare a schema, which is what you see on the upper left side of the screen. A schema of a document. This document will have a field called body. Body is going to be a type string. It's going to be required. It's going to have an author. It's going to be the comment is going to be attached to an existing article. So basically, what you're trying to do is model your business as a schema, and then you can use it in different way. So you get 2 other examples. I think on the bottom, it's you have a user that's currently connected. So that's the get model user find by ID. Okay, it retrieves the author object, and then if you go on the what is this? Yes, if you go if you look at the return statement, what the return statement is doing is creating a new object that represents a comment with an embedded user object. So that's a way to avoid doing SQL joins, but you can still do SQL with Cashbase. Apparently, people prefer to do it this way. I'm old. I prefer to do SQL. It depends. That's a way of doing it. And on the right, you can see another example of how to find an article and how to get the comments of the article. All this code is available on, I think, the last link you see here, and everything that goes around it, the user authentication, how to instantiate a connection to a Cache-based cluster, all the things that you want to know. I've talked a little bit about SQL and how much I still like SQL. To me, SQL is a way to express a lot of things into not a lot of code. So what you see here is a free example that do the same thing. On the left, you see a MongoDB query language example. In the middle, you see a traditional SQL example. And on the right, you see what Catchbase SQL is. If you don't know what SQL is, no worries, you don't have to use it. And if you have questions about SQL, we have a Discord channel, and we are always happy to help people learn about SQL because, SQL is great. Now, talking about SQL, usually when people talk about how to store things into a database, they talk about RDBMS, which is Relational Database System, and it goes like this. You have a server has a database has several schema, the schemas have several tables, and each table has some row. If you apply this to Catchbase, for us, a server equivalent is a cluster, a database bucket, a schema is a scope, a table, which has all those columns, is called a collection, and basically a row is a document. So if you were to take some inspiration on something that exists on the relational world of things, this is how you can transpose them to Couchbase. The transpose, it's pretty straightforward to transpose it. The only thing you cannot transpose, if you are familiar with relational databases, we don't have constraint, we don't have primary key, we don't have foreign key, it's just documents sitting there, but you can still do SQL join, you can still do ACID transaction, you can still do all that stuff. Clinton, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes? 3 minutes? 3 minutes. Because that was my last slide. I had a couple more, just in case. So this is an example of a Catchbase server architecture. It seems a little bit complicated, but it will give you a better idea on how you can integrate with the Catchbase cluster that's running. The important thing here is all the black arrows. The black arrows represent something we call the Data Change Protocol, DCP. It's kind of our internal streaming service. So if you're familiar with Kafka, with Amazon SQS, it's a streaming thing that allow us to synchronize all the services together, because what you will do is write data to data service, and then the data service will, thanks to DCP, update the index service, the full text service, and maybe all the other stuff that you have connected to Catchbase, because you can connect Catchbase to other cluster, but you can also connect Catchbase to Kafka, to Spark, to lots of other different things. Oh, I know I had another slide. This one. Last slide, and then I will leave you alone. It's a CRUD cache query search example. Let's say you need to do CRUD operation. You need to put things into a cache to be faster. You need to query your documents, and you need to search them. Traditionally, people will use an event streaming application, say Kafka, for instance, and your full text search engine, maybe Elastic, your cache DB, maybe Redis, and your document DB, maybe Mongo, will be connected to the event streaming thing, so Kafka. And then your different services, all the code that you wrote, the code that you wrote for the search service is connected to the full text database. The code you write for the cache and CRUD service are connected to the right store, but they're also connected together, because if you have a problem with your cache, which means if you get some data and it's not in the cache, then what you need to do from the cache service is ask the CRUD service to, go and fetch the data in the database and then put it back in the cache. So you have to have a link between those two services. Basically, every black arrow that you see here, every black link that you see, is something you have to care about or to code. On the left, you see a fairly complicated example that require you to deploy free data store and even streaming data store like Kafka. In the middle, I took the liberty to remove the Kafka because I don't want to operate it. But what it does is create new links between services because the services need to do the synchronization that was automatically done by Kafka. And what you see on the far right is how it works with Catchbase. The way it works with Cashbase is all of that is automated, so you don't have to care. So you go from 8 interaction and 4 database or 6 interaction and 3 databases into only 3 interaction with 1 database to manage. And that's what Cashbase offers you. It's the possibility to simplify all those operations for all those use cases. Now, I'd like to thank you for the time you've given me. I am extremely excited about all the stuff that you're going to build, and I'm looking forward to judge them in a couple of weeks. So thank you, everyone, for being here, and I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen during this hackathon. Just remember, we have a Discord channel. We have our engineers that are here to help you. We'll be around with Nyah. Don't hesitate to ask questions. I think that's super important. If you're blocked, you don't have a lot of time. If you are blocked, you have to ask for help, and we'll be here to help you. Do not hesitate. We'll be really happy to do so. So thank you, and see you in a couple of weeks. How do you get the link to all these examples I just showed you? I'm going to share the slides with you on the chat and on the Slack, because I know we have a Slack channel as well, so I'll put that there, and on our Discord as well. All right.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for that wonderful presentation. And for those of us asking for links to his presentation, Lauren has dropped the link, so you can access the link. And if you have any questions, ensure you just keep them coming. We have a Q&A session where we'll attend to all of your questions. But for now, we are going to take a brief break, and by the time we come back, we would have Nyah Macklin up right now. It's time to go and get that glass of water, that glass of cold juice, or whatever you want to munch on. So in the next 5 minutes, we'll be right back to get started.
Hey everyone. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I hope y'all are enjoying Spaces Hack-Conf 2023. Big shout out to my wonderful boss, Laurent, who just went before me. I just wanted to say thank y'all for having me, number one. And I hope that you enjoyed the pre-hackathon how to get started with Couchbase streams that we did just a couple days ago. Okay, so good afternoon, number one, giving y'all the energy. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Spaces Hack-Conf 2023. Okay, we are out here. All right, so my name is Nyah Macklin. All right, my name is Nyah Macklin, and I am a developer evangelist at Couchbase. And I am so honored to be talking with you all today. So Lagos represent, all right? Lagos represent, all right? We are out here. Thank you. Okay. So today we're going to chat about the impact of community and hackathons and how they drive tech careers. Okay. So, first of all, I wanted to start off with how many of us started coding by typing something into a search engine, right? Throw it into the chat, right? It could have been Google, it could have been Bing, for example, right? Maybe you typed in, how do I learn software engineering? Or you could have typed in, how do I learn Python, right? A lot of us, we tried to figure out, okay, what's a coding language that people have used before? Maybe it's Python. Or you could have looked up, like, how do I learn JavaScript, or any random coding language. So a lot of us have started out when we were first trying to get into tech. We're trying to learn to code, and we put those things into a search engine and tried to figure out how to go about it that way. And the thing of it is that many of us started on this journey very, very alone, right? Very, very alone. We did not have a large school that taught software engineering that's available to us, like some people do, but many of us did not have that, right? We did not have programs or a classroom where others like ourselves were all trying to learn the skills to become successful in tech, right? Each of us possibly had an idea or saw someone who looked like us doing this. And we said, and I'm looking at you, Clinton, as someone that many of us saw doing this incredible work, because you are such a strong influence to many engineers today. And we said, if Clinton can do it, right? If Gift can do it, if Laurent can do it, if he can do it, if she can do it, if they can do it, then maybe I can too. Okay. So we took those first steps and we started to search for the ways to learn the skills that we all know today. And many of us started alone, right? And much of that journey is lonely as well, right? Tech can be a very, very lonely place, right? Whether you are a product manager, whether you're a designer, whether you're a scrum master, a quality assurance tester, or a software engineer, it is very seldom a place that we see people who look like us excelling in this field. And then we find people like Clinton, right? People like Gift, people like Amarachi, right? People like Laurent, people like Isabella, right? People like the entire CodeSpace team, people like the entire Couchbase team. And we realize that we're actually not alone in this journey, right? We are actually amongst some of the greatest and some of the most brilliant minds in this field who are capable of changing our lives, right? And we are capable of changing our lives and changing our families' lives for generations to come. And that is the power of tech. So tech provides a tight community where so many of us are on this collective journey to change our families' lives forever. And we can help each other get to our goals. There's a proverb, right? Many of you probably have heard this growing up, but there's a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, finish it with me, go alone. But if you want to go far, then go together. We are a community. The CodeSpace and Couchbase communities are two communities that have come together to form one family. All right. And family looks out for each other. Okay. So I want each of you to know, at least at this moment right now, that if you don't already know, you are a part of the Couchbase family, right? You are a part of the CodeSpace family. You are now a part of my family. And if I can ever help you on this journey, if Laurent can help, if Clinton can help, if Isabella can help, we will do whatever we can to help you. And we want to see everyone win. So you should know that this is how we help each other, right? If someone ever asks you for help throughout this hackathon, this is what family does, right? We help each other. We care about each other and we treat each other like friends, not competitors. So now, what are the impacts of hackathons on career trajectories? Okay, so number one, let's take a step back, right? Enter the world of hackathons. Hackathons are a space where people come together and join passion with execution, right? The goal is to come up with a problem in the real world that you want to solve and then create a team, right? Create a collective, create a community, and eventually a product that will solve that problem. So in a hackathon, you don't just write software and then leave like, okay, I'm out, I'm done. I did what I had to do for those 2 weeks and then I'll never see y'all ever again. Absolutely not, right? In a hackathon, you come together to build lifelong friends, right? And somebody might hear that and be like, friends, right? Like, what's Nyah talking about friends? I'm not here to build friends. I'm here to win. And I understand that. But hear me out, right? Hear me out on the importance of friendships and how they can propel your tech career forever. Okay? So friends can become co-founders, right? In your idea. Friends become CEOs, right? Friends become senior vice presidents at your company, right? Friends become engineering managers, right? You can build a company from an idea and a product that you build at Spaces Hack-Conf 2023 and all of the hackathons, okay? You can take this idea and then go apply to an accelerator program, okay? Or you can build out an entire company and then pitch that product to venture capitalists to get your idea invested in, right? All from the things that you build at hackathons. Or you can, what they call bootstrap the company or the idea and start to get customers yourself and then start making money, okay? And then continue to invest that money back into Lagos, all right? And all of the African continent. So participating in hackathons also gives you the social capital in tech. And what I mean by social capital is that if you are searching for a position or a job, right? When you don't have experience working on a team to create a project on a tight deadline, you have a smell. Come in close, okay? Let me say it again. When you don't have experience working on a team to create a project on a tight deadline, honey, you smell, okay? You have a stinky, stinky smell, all right? And, right, you're trying to figure out why won't recruiters or hiring managers talk to me, okay? And recruiters and hiring managers, they look at your application, right, to this job, and they say, oh, you're new. No, you stink. I can't do it. You stink. And you're trying to figure out how to get this stink off of you. All right. You're trying to get this stink off of you. And one way to get that stink off of you is by doing hackathons. Point blank, period. Right. And it's all about the way that you describe your hackathon experience. Okay. So take out a pen and some paper or a pencil. Right. This is also going to be recorded. So I'm going to step y'all onto a little bit of game today. Okay. So hackathons, right? Hackathons are technical experiences where you work on a cross-functional team. And you can write this in your resume. And this will also be recorded, a reminder. Hackathons are a technical experience where you work on a cross-functional team and you collaborated to develop a working product for a group of diverse stakeholders within a specific period of time. And that was the 2-week sprint that we're going to do here at Spaces Hack-Conf 2023, right? And that product was then showcased to stakeholders and if you win, you've won an award for your work. So now, if you're one of those 3 top teams, okay, you can say, I am an award-winning product manager. I am an award-winning software engineer. I am an award-winning designer, right? And you don't even, and for those who don't win, that's okay. You don't even have to win to get that stink off of you, right? You just have to participate fully in this hackathon to get that real world tech experience. And that gets rid of the smell. Okay, that gets rid of the smell. By participating in a hackathon, you no longer have that new smell, and you now have real world technical experience that can be applied to future tech or engineering teams. You now have experience, and that is incredible. And it can be vital to helping you get full-time paid jobs in your field of interest. The more hackathons you do, meaning the more real world technical experience that you have, and a hackathon is just one example of that, the better a chance you have of moving forward in the interview process for the roles that you are applying for. So remember, again, I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna give you the words that you can use on your resume, right? You participated in a hackathon, which is a technical experience where you worked on a cross-functional team and you collaborated with that team to develop a working product for a group of diverse stakeholders. And you did that within a specific period of time, and that was the 2-week sprint. That product was then showcased to stakeholders, and you won an award for your work for those who win. So that's some information that you can put on your resume, and that will bolster you to be very, very, very successful. So for every single member of the 3 winning teams, you can now say without question that you are an award-winning tech professional. And that helps you stand out amongst your peers. That is massive in your tech journey. But don't stop there, right? Don't stop there. This hackathon should not be the last time you come together with fellow technologists to build something that solves a real world problem, or where you think about a problem and come up with the architecture for a solution, or even just talk with and learn with and be in community with fellow tech people, right? I want to see each of you out in the world, telling the world about your experiences that you learned this couple of weeks, right? I want to see each of you on social media, right? I want to see each of you learning in public, right? I want to see each of you blogging about your experience, talking about building the products that you have built in this hackathon. I want to see each of you go attend a local meetup, speak at a local meetup even, where you can ask to speak about your experience building the project that you're building right now at Spacers Hack-Conf 2023, right? Start another project with a fellow technologist, right? Talk in online forums, speak on a podcast, okay? Share your knowledge online or just to the person sitting right next to you, and learn from your new friends that you meet here. But the key, y'all, the key is to stay in community, to stay in contact, and to stay in communication, right? Make friends during this time. Build a robust community to engage with the CodeSpace community, engage with the Couchbase community. Don't forget, we have a Discord. Come and join our Discord. And then make sure that you are making lifelong friends here, because friends look out for each other, right? Your friends that you're going to meet here are going to be the eventual hiring managers who can help you get a role in the future, right? They can hire you to become the senior vice president of their company. You can hire them to become the senior vice president of your company, right? That's how friendships work in the tech field, right? The more you immerse yourself in this experience and make deep connections, the more opportunities you will unearth, okay? So remember that collaboration is a two-way street. While we gain insights from others, your experiences and your knowledge are invaluable for this community too. So sharing your knowledge only enriches this entire collective community. And it also, on top of that, establishes you as a thought leader in this community. So I know I've spoken a lot about the experiences of starting out, right? Trying to learn about tech and how lonely it could be, how isolating it could be. But if you take one thing from this talk, right? If you take one thing from this talk, I want it to be the importance of community building, the importance of community engagement, the importance of being present and showing up for your community, and your willingness to share knowledge during these hackathons, and how impactful that can be on your tech career. So I'll end with this. You, yes, you are a powerful and brilliant individual, okay? Everyone is brilliant at something. Most of the time, it takes practice. It takes hours and hours and months and years and sometimes decades of practice to unearth your particular brilliance. But investing in you always pays off. Always. And we will always, always be here to help you with your journey. So congratulations for participating in this immense moment in your life. We are all rooting for you. Go forth and prosper, y'all. Hope you do well. Okay. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Thank you so much. If you have any questions for me, again, my name is Nyah Macklin. I am the developer evangelist for Couchbase. I'm so proud to work with Laurent, right under Laurent, as he's the director of developer relations and I am the developer evangelist for the Americas. If you have any questions about Couchbase, about just trying to stay motivated during this time, literally any questions at all, y'all know we got you. This is a collective movement. This is what we do. And we are so appreciative of you taking the time to come join us today. So any questions that you have, we got you. Otherwise, I'm going to pass it back to Isabella. Let's do this. All right, y'all. I'm going to jump off stage. See you soon. Good luck, y'all.
Thank you so much, Nyah, for that amazing talk. It was really an amazing session. I was literally saying at this point, I am going to adopt you as my Nigerian sister. It was really great having you talk about being part of a community, being part of the ecosystem, being part of a family. And I'm sure all of the participants and everyone on this call had an amazing session. Silas said you are a good motivator, and I totally agree with him. You're truly a good motivator. You came in with your finesse and the fire. I told you all that Nyah is a really amazing person. She just has her way with her words. She has a way with bringing in spirit, life, passion, zeal, and everything to the table. I don't know if any of us have questions that we need to ask Nyah, be it about Couchbase, be it about hackathons, be it about whatever it may be. If you have any questions, as you can see, Nyah is a good motivator, and so if you're really feeling down in any aspect of your tech career, now is a good time to ask her that question that has been bugging your mind, because trust me, she's going to have one or two things that's going to lift your spirits today. I'll just hop into YouTube to see if there is any questions or comments there before we move forward. Okay, so Nyah, it's just every one of us saying thank you for your lovely and really amazing session. Now we're going to be moving on to, we're going to have a quiz session, and just before, right after the quiz session, we're going to have Amarachi Johnson-Ubah, who will be talking to us about contributing to open source, and she'll be discussing about trends, emerging technologies, and all the nitty gritty that you need to know to contribute to open source, or to even elevate your game when it comes to contributing to open source. Oh, Naya, I love you too. Yes. So we're going to have that session just right now. And for the quiz session, we're going to we have various questions from various tech fields, and how the quiz session is going to run is that when I ask a question, whether you're watching us from the general link from YouTube, or you're with us at StreamYard, if you have the answer to the question, you just drop it. So the whole idea is just for us to have a fun session. So like Naya mentioned in her talk, some of us, we just get into coding and um, just from YouTube, and most times we do not really learn the basics. So trust me, this is going to be an opportunity for you to know whether you know the basics in tech. You know, sometimes when they ask you what is your mastery level in tech, we are very quick to say intermediate, advanced, pro, and all of that. But today we are really going to know whether you are a pro beginner, or you are a pro intermediate, or you're a beginner intermediate. So we're just going to jump right in. I hope we all understand how the quiz session is going to work. I'll just run over it again. I'm going to ask the questions, and when you have the answer, you just type it in the comment section. You know, we can't just come here and talk. We need to have fun, and do not hesitate to type the answers, whether it is wrong, whether it is right, or whether it is in between. So I'm just going to dive right into to the quiz. Now, our first question is, what does HTML stand for? HTML. And please, to also add again, you cannot ask Google. You cannot search on any search engine at all before you say, oh, she mentioned only Google, and go on Explore or what have you. So the question remains, what does HTML stand for? Hmm. Hmm. Hypertext markup language. We have two answers. Okay, let me see. Yes, hypertext markup language. That is absolutely correct. HTML is the standard markup language for creating web pages. So Lauren said hypertext markup language, and he said, I think you're absolutely correct. And we also have Daniel and Ignatius that gave us the right answer. Our next question is, which programming language is known for its use in machine learning and data science? Which programming language is known for its use in machine learning and data science? Hmm. Hmm. I can see all the Agba software engineers and developers. Python, absolutely correct. So when it comes to data science and machine learning, because Python is known for its simplicity and being rich in library, it's usually a preferable language for machine learning and data science. So next we have is, what is the purpose of version control system like Git? What is the purpose of a version control system like Git? I can smell silence everywhere. Is this question too hard? Should I break it down? If I begin to break it down, you will pay me for examination malpractice, or in this scenario, it will be quiz malpractice. Or should I go over the question again? Okay. What is the purpose of version control system like Git? Okay. Arinze says to help teams work better on their code, on their codes, like merging. Yeah, that is quite close. Okay. Daniel says to keep track of various versions of one software just in case of bugs. Gersh blog says to save, monitor, and collaborate in projects. Mhm. To have a central place. Okay, Ignatius says to have a central place for all your codes. Yes. So basically we've all said the same thing, which is to track and manage changes in code and to collaborate with others, because Git helps developers to track, to coordinate your changes on your on in their code base, and to make collaboration way easier. Like you're working together even when you are separated by distance. So that's really amazing. You all gave like really brilliant answers. Next is, which programming language is primarily used for building mobile apps on the Android platform? Which programming language is primarily used for building mobile apps on the Android platform? Let me check. Hmm. Now I'm seeing different answers. I love this. I love this. Different answers. Okay. Anybody from YouTube live? Let's see. Someone said Flutter. Someone said Kotlin. Someone said Java. Another person said, I think Java. So you can see that we have different answers. This is like a final call. If you're going to drop your answer, just drop it now, because yeah, let's see. So which of them is correct? The final answer, the right answer is actually Java, because Java is the official language for Android app development. So it's not Flutter, it's not Kotlin, it is Java. And next we have is, what is the term for fixing errors in a program to make it work correctly? When you have errors in your program, how can you, what is the term? What is that terminology that you say, okay, I'm doing this to make the program work correctly? Yes, debugging. Absolutely, debugging. You guys are so amazing. I can really say that when, like, now I can beat my chest and say, when in CodeSpace we have developers that are grounded in tech knowledge, basic tech knowledge. Sometimes you might be surprised how simple these things seem, but it might be easy to mix things up, or not to even know what certain things stands for. And next we have is, in programming, what does IDE stand for? IDE. IDE. What does it stand for? IDE. What does it stand for? Yeah, Daniel got this correctly. He said integrated development environment, which is absolutely correct. For hmm, someone else, yeah, Defi Boy says integrated development environment. Yeah, Arinze, yes, it is integrated instead of independent. So you see, integrated development environment, which is a software suite that combines code editing, debugging, and used to build automation tools. And next we have, what is the primary function of a compiler in the context of programming languages? What's the primary? It has other, a compiler has other functions, but what is its primary function when it comes to the context of programming languages? Exactly. Gersh blocks converts codes to machine language, which is like to translate high level code into machine, or yeah, into machine code. So it converts human readable code into a format that a computer can execute. For those of us that did computer in secondary school or way back in primary school, I think one of the very first introductions into computer is that they usually tell you that um, the computer does not understand the language, the human language. It has its own language. So when you begin to delve into the basics and even go deeper into coding, you begin to understand that reality when you begin to learn different coding and programming languages. So how many cybersec experts do we have in the house? Because now I'm moving from coding questions, just a bit of basics of cyber security. So I'm going to ask uh, three more questions before we introduce our next speaker. And trust me, just like Naya, she is fire. So our first question out of the top three is, what does HTTPS stand for in the context of web security? What does HTTPS stand for? HTTPS, what does it stand for in the context of web security? Hmm. Okay. Why is silence happening? What is happening? Where are my keyboard warriors? Okay. Yeah. Hypertext transfer protocol secure. Protocol security. Hypertext transfer protocol. Hypertext transfer protocol security. Anyone from YouTube? Let's see. None. Well, hmm. Did anybody get this correctly? Let me see. Nah. So, the full meaning of HTTPS is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. HTTPS is a secure version of HTTP. So, Geshblog, um, the answer you gave is actually for HTTP, not HTTPS. You were missing that word secure. And for Ignatius, I think you wrote security. That should have been secure. Our next question is, what is a phishing attack? What is a phishing attack? Hmm. Why is everybody on the YouTube channel quiet? What is a phishing attack? You guys should answer. Answer, answer, answer. The clock is ticking. Clock is ticking. Clock is ticking. Hmm. If I answer this question myself, I am going to tax everybody. You guys should have to pay me for providing you the accurate answer. Oh, Naya said you're here. Okay. Okay, okay. But nobody's giving me the answer. Hmm. So I'm going to take it that nobody has the answer. And when we refer to phishing attack, it is a deceptive attempt to obtain sensitive information by posing as a trustworthy entity. Uh, we're all in tech, and you can tell the importance of later casing. There are some links that may appear really similar, but when you look at the later casing, you would realize that, okay, one of the links is original, another is a phishing attack just to get your information. Because for instance, you can have let me see, adidas.com, and maybe one could have the have like this. I do not know how to describe it, but we have an A that is like curved at the top. Yeah, you could have something like that, and another A with like closed and a straight line. And at the end of the day, you realize that probably the original Adidas is using the original Adidas is using the A with a dash, and probably the phishing link has the one curved at the top. So phishing attacks are really quite common, and they are mostly used for fraudulent emails or websites to trick users into revealing like personal information. And our last question is, what is a firewall in network security? What is a firewall? Yeah, when a person fakes a personality to deceive. Yes, you're correct, Daniel. So our last question is, what is a firewall in network security? When it comes to network security, what do we refer to as a firewall? Hmm, time is ticking, and I am just going to give that answer. Okay, well, a firewall is a security system that filters incoming and outgoing network traffic. So basically, firewalls protect a network by monitoring and controlling data traffic. So, thank you everybody that participated in this mini quiz. It was quite interesting. Yes, Gersh Blogs, you got that correct. Network security device that monitors and filter incoming and outgoing network traffic. Okay, Ignatius, you can ask your question, and in the Q&A session, we are going to answer that. But for now, Clinton, could you please describe the challenge? Hey Clinton, can you hear me? Could you display the challenge on the screen again for everybody to take note of it? Yes. So there is a challenge that has been going on in Twitter and across our social media channels. Join the challenge and win a free swag box. All you have to do is to follow CodeSpace across all of our social media handles, follow our sponsor Couchbase across all of their social media handles, and make a post. say something exciting about this Spacers Hack-Conf 2023. Say something exciting, say something interesting. And then what you need to do next is to invite your friends, your community members, your loved ones, your relative, whoever you have, invite them to come and because the person with the highest like is going to be going home with a swag box of branded items from CodeSpace and Couchbase. So you need to hop on this challenge. And next, if you want to join our community, our arms are open. We are ready to welcome you into our flock. CodeSpace is an exciting opportunity for Gen Z techies, whether you are in tech, you are a developer, a product designer, whoever you are across all workspace, and we are open. We are ready to have you. I do not want to talk too much. Next, I just want to invite our speaker, Amarachi, as she would be talking about contributing to open source, and she'll be talking about the trends, emerging technologies, all you need to do to advance your progress when it comes to contributing to open source. So let's have Amarachi right on the screen. Hi,
Hi,
Amarachi.
hi, Isabella. Good evening,
Hi.
everyone. To share my
Evening.
screen.
Okay.
Yes, so let me quickly do that. Hmm, I think the downside to this, just give me a moment. Um, while I shared my screen, I'm unable to see the screen, and I need to be sure that I'm here. So I think I'm going to move this. Please give me some moments to use two screens now. This is one of the times when it's important to do that. All right, let me try this again. Uh, present. Okay, I'm currently sharing my screen, right? Oh, okay, this is great. Okay, I think we're all set here. Hello, everybody. And thank you, Isabella, for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here, listening to. I was joining live on YouTube before I joined through StreamYard because I'm going to be speaking next. So thank you, Isabella. Thank you, CodeSpace. Thank you, Couchbase, for organizing this hackathon. I love hackathons because I see it as a very good opportunity to collaborate, which is one thing open source communities are all about. So I'm very excited to meet everyone. And today I'm going to be talking on the topic contributing to open source, and then we'll be looking at some trends and emerging technologies. So I'll quickly introduce myself. I am Amarachi Johnson-Ubah, and I am a developer community manager at Consensus Mesh. Consensus Mesh is a Web3 company that incubates and basically support Web3 companies. And I work with the research and development team to manage an open source community. I'm also an open source community manager at Open Terms Archives as part of the open source community manager program by GitHub. I am also very passionate about advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which can be highlighted by my core involvement in communities like She Could Africa and the rest. I am also a social entrepreneur and a public speaker. Okay, so we are going to take it from the top Okay, I'm back. All right, so prior to joining this meeting, I wasn't opportune to know the audience, but I always like to tailor my talk in such a way that it benefits both beginners, intermediate, and experts. So whichever category you belong, I'm pretty sure that by the end of this session, you're definitely going to get something remarkable out of it. And before we continue, please, if you can hear me, because I have some network glitches, if you can hear me, please drop your favorite emoji on the comments. I'm currently looking at my screen. I want to know that we are all together. One of the downsides of virtual meetings like this is that sometimes you're unable to know at what point or what your audience are doing. But by sharing your comments, I'll be able to know that we are all together. And of course, I know there's a Q&A session, so as you listen, if there are questions, feel free to drop them. So we are quickly going. Thank you so much. Thank you all for dropping those emojis. They are heartwarming. Thank you. Now I know we're all together. All right. So what exactly is open source? Since this is a hackathon, I know that a lot of people here already have come across open source somehow. So I'm not assuming that there are people who have never heard of the term, but then I think I can assume that there are people who have never contributed to open source projects, right? All right. So just for benefits of those who may not have come across open source or have come across open source but don't really understand what it means. It's possible to be a developer and not know what open source is. I was like that until 2019 when I joined the Open Source Community Africa as their social and community manager. So open source is basically a way of creating and sharing software where the source code of that software is made available for anyone to view, to use, and to modify. So the way I usually like to explain this in very basic and layman terms is just like you having a piece of toy and you allow your friends and everyone who wants to use that toy to even make changes to that toy, then you can say that toy is open source. So in development, in software engineering, open source softwares are software that have their source code open for anyone, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your educational level, irrespective of your race, your gender, as long as you have an interest in contributing to an open source project, the doors are always open for you. And I think that's very exciting. Um, for open source projects, there are three core principles that I want to highlight. And the first one is transparency. In open source project, one of the things that make a project open is that it is transparent. Both the code base, its mode of governance, its mode of operation, its roadmaps are usually publicly available. So if you're part of an open source project or an open source community, you're most likely going to be joining things like community calls or things like development calls where you are literally part of the team. Yeah, the maintainers might have their own maintenance meetings once in a while, but every single thing that they discuss in that meeting is going to be open for all. So when you're part of an open source community, you're literally part of an organization. So they are not going to be sidelining you when core decisions are being made. You're always going to be part of things like that. And the code base is also very open to everyone. Then number two key principle of open source communities or open source projects is collaboration. I have a previous talk where I delved more into how collaboration can be used as a key to successful open source communities. You can find it on YouTube. It's in the Open Source Community Africa YouTube channel. So collaboration is at the heart of every open source project. There is no open source project that can thrive without collaboration. So I see this as a key principle. And the number three principle is sharing. Of course, anyone can use and reuse the code base or the project. So for instance, you have something you want to build and there is an open source tool that can make your work easier. Instead of starting from the beginning to build those things, you can just take some snippets from the code base snippets of code, or even fork the entire open source repo and put inside your project, because it's open for everyone. So these three principles, I want you to have them in mind, because as you proceed, as you start making up your mind to start contributing to open source, or you start making up your mind to even open up your own projects to become open source community, you have to have these three core principles in mind. So if you're not ready to imbibe by these three principles, then maybe you're not ready to join open source. So I just listed three examples of some very common open source projects that you may know. A lot of us know about Linux operating system, we know about Mozilla Firefox, we know about WordPress. How many of you already knew that that these three projects are open source? If you already knew, let me know in the comment. Did you know Linux is open source? Do you know Mozilla Firefox is an open source project? Your favorite browser? Of course, my favorite browser is Chrome, but I know a lot of people like to use Firefox. Did you know that WordPress is an open source project? If you already knew, let me know in the comment. And if you're just knowing now, also let me know, so I can take my accolades for enlightening you. So now, as we are all here, why am I here? Why do you have to contribute to open source? What is the benefit of contributing to open source? Number one, this is for contributors, as already listed on your screen. One is to improve on your existing skills. Nyah, who spoke previously, talked about how participating in hackathons can help you to strengthen your CV. You can go out there and say, I am an award-winning product manager because you worked as a product manager in a hackathon. It's just the same way with open source. Like when I think about hackathons, it's super synonymous to open source as well, because it's all about collaboration. It's all about you coming together as a team to build something, and also taking credit for what you've built. So for as a contributor to open source, you improve on your existing skills. Sometimes it's very hard for beginners or even intermediate people to land jobs. A lot of companies are looking for experts. They want people that already have work experience. So instead of you to sit around waiting for an organization to hire you and then you get to have your job experience with them, how about you contribute to open source? It is a vivid way to strengthen your skills. You're looking for how to implement the technical writing skills you've learned over the years. You're looking for how to implement your front end skills. Contribute to open source today. Number two is problem solving. Of course, everything around open source contribution has to do with problem solving, whether you fix the comma, whether you redesigned the interface, whether you contributed one or two blocks of code. You are solving a problem, and there are people who are using the solution that you're giving. For instance, as I mentioned, Firefox and WordPress as open source tools, we're all using it. There are people who contributed to those tools and they have solved a problem that we have. Number three is increasing community recognition. In other words, I like to call this improving thought leadership, right? When you contribute to open source projects and you do well to also share and amplify your contributions to those open source communities, it makes people know you as someone who is knowledgeable in the field you say you know. For instance, if you say you are a community manager like me and you're just there, nobody knows you're a community manager. Nobody knows how good you are. But if I go to an open source community and say, hey, I see that a lot of things are not really working out in this community. You really need a community manager. I would like to join this team, this community as a community manager. And I go out there. If there are things I do in the community, I write about it or I tweet about it. People know that I am doing this. People would recognize me as a thought leader or as someone who really knows her onion in community management. The fourth one is finding mentors and teaching other people. Of course, when you join an open source community, there are always tons of people who have already contributed to that project, who are more like mentors now, and that can guide you through your first and subsequent contributions. And of course, it's always recommended. I always advise that when you learn how to cross a rope, you have to always turn back to help others cross through that same bridge. So you find mentors and you teach others. And lastly, and this is not the last advantage of open source contribution, by the way, is that you get paid. I had to add this because it's there, so no need to exclude it. You get paid contributing to open source projects. Some people even get contracts to contribute, but you can also join things like Google Summer of Code, things like Google Season of Docs, Outreachy. These are paid programs around open source, and it's also part of the benefits of doing this. Then for the community itself, if you're here and you're thinking of converting that your favorite project to an open source tool, the benefit for you is that you're going to have faster progress. You're going to be able to have features that would have taken you probably 1 year, 2 years to implement. You would find yourself having them done in weeks or months, because you now have more community eye on your project, more people who are willing to help you build faster. Number two is diversity. You're going to be having myriads of people from different backgrounds, different experience level, different countries, different genders, contributing to your product. I know what that means. That's diversity. That's, it gives you more, even features that you did not even know would have been necessary. You would start realizing that they are really useful for you. And lastly is that it will help you build a very free and useful tool. Free and usefulness is not mutually exclusive. A product can be free and still be useful, just like our Mozilla Firefox and our WordPress. It is free and it is very useful to us. Now, I know this is a hackathon and a lot of us have built very fantastic projects. Instead of allowing some of those projects to die or never see the light of the day because, oh, you're done with the hackathon now, and the winners have been announced, I encourage you, I indulge you to please try to convert them to open source projects and see how it goes. You're going to grow faster. You're going to have more features than you even already built out in this hackathon, and you'll have more eyes on your project as well. So now, if you're here, you have never contributed to open source projects, you've been wondering, I don't know how to code. How exactly do I even get started, even though I know how to code? I don't know where to find issues to contribute to. I am going to be explaining some of the ways you can contribute to open source communities or open source projects. The first on the list always is code contributions. Everybody already knows that. If I think that's something a lot of people think is the norm, like that's the only way to contribute. So apart from code contributions, which can involve fixing bugs, adding new features, reporting issues, reviewing pull requests. This is if you're a maintainer, right? There are also other ways, but I want to also explain something around issue reporting. Now, if you're using an open source tool and you realize that there is a problem somewhere, you're reading through a documentation, you realize there is a problem in the documentation or even the software itself. If you go to their open source repository or and you create an issue outlining this problem you've faced, outlining possible ways you think it can be solved, you have contributed to an open source project, even though you did not implement the solution yourself. You did not write the code to fix that issue yourself. But the fact that you were able to highlight that issue, that's actually why a lot of open source communities run bug bounties. I don't know if you've heard about bug bounties before. In bug bounties, people get paid to hunt for bugs in a project, because it's very important for maintainers of these open source projects to see the problems, their security challenges, the typographical errors in their docs. They want to see it, and when they see it, they can now be able to label it appropriately, and people who have the knowledge and the skills to fix those issues can come in to fix it. So another thing you can do is to, of course, improve their documentation. If you're a designer, you can contribute your design skills to an open source community. Design contribution in an open source community is a little bit tricky, because most of the time you won't see the issues right there on the GitHub repo. So most of the time you have to reach out to whoever the maintainer is, join the community platform and reach out to the maintainer telling them, see, this is what I realized in your user interface, assuming it's the user interface design you want to change or the user experience. Explain to them, like, plead your case, tell them what you see that's wrong with their platform, and that these are the suggested changes you would like to make. And then if they give you an approval, you can go ahead and design. Another thing is community advocacy. You have a lot of open source tools that you really love. Who have you told about those open source tools? Remember that open source projects, one of the things that make them relevant is adoption. If you build an open source project today, let's say your hackathon project, you decide to move them to open source and nobody uses them, nobody talks about them, people are not going to be motivated to come in and contribute to your open source project. So as every open source project maintainer, really loves to see that people are talking good about the project, that it has an impact in the life of people. Another thing, another word for open source, what I call open source projects, is public good, because it's for the good of people and it's free. So if you're using an open source project, talk about it. Like there is this open source tool I got to know about 3 months ago. It's called Jitsi. It's a little bit of replica of Google Meet. It's for meetings, like holding meetings, just the same way we use Zoom and Google Meet. And nowadays, when I am in the midst of people, I usually tell them, hey, there is this very useful open source tool that I have come across. It's called Jitsi. So community advocacy, talk about the open source tools. There are open source alternatives to literally all the tools we use today, but a lot of them nobody talks about them. Things like the Jitsi I just mentioned. There are alternatives to Google Calendar, like there is this tool that I came across during Oscar Fest. I don't know why I just forgot. They were also sponsors of Oscar Fest, I think. So it has like Google Doc. It has like a replica for Google Docs. It has an alternative for your calendar. Literally everything that Google Workspace offers. But it's an open source tool, but a lot of people don't know that they exist. So talk about your open source projects. Encourage people to join. The last is community support. If you're part of an open source community and someone joins, they have a question, please, where do I locate the community the code of conduct? You can say, hey, here is it. You're contributing to open source. It's true, it may not be reflecting in your GitHub, the green thing on your GitHub that everybody loves to have, but the fact that you're helping people. If you know about Ikega Root, one of her core strength in open source contribution is community advocacy and support. She loves to help new people on board into every open source community that she joins, and that is what gave her the GitHub Star Award. It wasn't the number of codes she contributed, it wasn't the designs, it was just community advocacy and support, because sometimes that's even the hardest thing to do. It's easy to, if you're already knowledgeable in programming, it's easy to contribute a line of code and go your way, but being there for people, ensuring that they have a soft landing in contribution, can actually set the community apart, and it's a very valuable open source contribution. Now let's get into one of our major topics of the day, which is the emerging trends in open source. This topic was quite tricky, like this very section of this, because when it comes to open source, there are usually no much emphasis on trends, right? Because every open source project deserves the same amount of interest, the same amount of attention. Maintainers are needed in a lot of open source communities. Funding is needed in a lot of open source communities. But then I still have to highlight some of these emerging technology areas, just in case there are people here who have interest in any of them. You can go online and check out for the projects that are building around this, because I have a strong feeling that some of these projects would have really fewer contributors, unlike projects that may need more of, like, more like front end web dev skills. But when it comes to things like 5G, augmented reality, Internet of Things, blockchain, Web3, gaming, those are very kind of cutting edge technology, which is almost like I work in the Web3 sphere, and in my community, in my team, we are working on decentralized identity, which is like an emerging tech as well. It's a little bit difficult getting people or onboarding people into these communities. So my advice, my charge is, if you're knowledgeable or interested in any of these emerging trends in technology, most of the time these trends, these niches, they are very welcoming. They understand that they are emerging. They understand that there are no much resources out there that can help onboard new contributors. Therefore, they are usually very open and free-minded. So when you join this community, don't say, oh, it's 5G, I have no idea what 5G means. No, if you join these communities, you might find out that there are other aspects of contributions that they lack. Maybe things like even the front end web. Of course, they have websites, they have documentations as well, and they have security challenges too. So you can run tests for their programs. You can debug. If you're a software tester, you can implement your skills and help them find their security issues, because most of these emerging trends in open source are actually having security issues. So you can join and volunteer your time and your skills to ensure that these emerging trends get better by the day. Another problem these emerging trends also have is standards. A lot of them, I'm in the Web3 space, and I can see for sure that in blockchain there are like so many standards, even conflicting ones, right? So if you're a researcher, you're someone who loves to delve deep into cutting edge technologies, these these topics I listed on the screen here is for you. Choose one and dig into it. So now, how do you get started with contributing to open source? You're here, you don't know how to get started. I've outlined a step-by-step format. I also attached a couple of links at the end of this slide, and I'll be sharing the links to this slide so you can be able to access those links. But just a high level, I know my time is almost up, so I'm just going to rush through this. Number one is to choose an area of expertise, right? I already mentioned it must not be coding. So where is your strength? If you're to join an open source community today, where will your strength be mostly seen? If you know that area, then start looking for projects that you can contribute to. A lot of open source projects advertise their open issues on Twitter. So if you search, you might be able to see, like if you search for good first issues, you might be able to see some on GitHub, but I usually advise to use GitHub itself. Use the explore button on GitHub and search for projects that align with your goals. Then number three is to learn the basics. When you join a project, the first thing to do is not to contribute. I know this is October first month, and a lot of contributors are all looking for projects to contribute to. And for some people, once they join a project, they start contributing right away. They don't even know what they are doing there. Their own is, I want to get a PR merged for, so I can get some swags from Oktoberfest. Although I learned they are no longer giving swags for this year. So when you go to a community, first of all, start with the basics. Read their guidelines. Every good open source community should have some guidelines, some contributing files that show you how to contribute. Go through their code of conduct, go through their everything in the readme repository, basically, or the readme file rather, to see what is expected of you and how this open source community even runs. You can even check their issues and see when was the last time a contribution was done to this repository, because some open source projects are dead. So you don't go and contribute and nobody even talks to you for 1 year. So the next thing is to start small. What are the smaller issues you can fix in this open source community? You can check their website or wherever by yourself to find an issue. You can also check the already existing issues to find the one you can fix. Then the next thing to do is to start collaborating. Most open source communities, most open source projects have communities. I usually interchange open source community and open source project because they usually go hand in hand. So look for where their platform is. It Discord? Is it Slack? Is it there on the GitHub discussion channel? Join them. Start asking questions before you start fixing any issue. Ensure you communicate with the maintainers. Tell them that you'd like to fix this issue, because there's a possibility that someone is already fixing that issue, or the issue is even stale, is no longer being tracked, or nobody's interested in fixing it, but perhaps they forgot to close it. So when you comment and say, hey, I want to pick up this issue, the maintainer can give you a go ahead to continue. So the next thing is to get feedback. After contributing to an open source community or an open source project, maintainers always give feedback. I've been maintaining an open source project for the past 3 months, and I'm very, very generous with my feedback. I'll give you the feedback on what you did right, the one you did wrong, the ones I changed, and what you can do next time. And I believe that is like one of the modus operandi of every maintainer out there. So you get feedback, and then you implement that feedback for your next contribution. I don't usually advise you to contribute to an open source project once and run away. It's always good to stay in one open source project for a little while at least, to contribute over and over again, become an invaluable member of that community. That's the only way you can create relevance. If you contribute up to 100 projects in 1 month, it's better you contribute in only 1 or 2 projects at a time, right? Then the next thing you do is to stay consistent. It's still part of this. Stay consistent in contributing and in one community as well. I'm not saying you shouldn't contribute in others, but then don't just contribute one per community, scattering your contributions across 100 open source projects. Try to stay consistent in one project for a while before you move to another. The next thing is to build your portfolio. I already mentioned this before. So the more you contribute, don't forget to allow open source contribution to work for you too, Because one thing I always tell people, contributing to open source is like volunteer work. And one thing I usually tell people is the fact that you're volunteering for a cause does not mean that you don't get anything out of it. Yes, it's selfless service, but there's still a point where you should get something out of it. It mustn't be financial gains. It can just be the knowledge you get. It can be the network of people, of the network built. It can be a certification that they gave you. It can be a recommendation on your LinkedIn. So as you contribute to open source community, find a way to make it work for you by either adding it to your portfolio, by either sharing tweets or articles based on your findings and your learnings, by either meeting mentors, networking with people within the community space. Anyway, you can make the contribution you've made to also have some form of relevance in your own career, right? And lastly is to give back. When you've contributed to an open source project for a while and you're already very knowledgeable in contributing to that same community, remember I emphasized on at least staying in one community for a while, you have to start giving back to new members of that community, start answering questions within that community. If there are events the community is organizing, volunteer to host or volunteer to speak, right? Start giving back, train others along the way, mentor people, because that is the core of open source. If you only learn and run away, then open source community would not be existing, because if everybody just did one thing and ran, then there would have been nothing like open source communities. So you give back the knowledge gained, you give back your time, you give back by helping new ones in their journey in contributing to open source. So I left some useful links here, how you can start contributing to open source as a designer, how to contribute generally, like you've never sent a pull request in your life. The second link here would guide you through, it's the second and fourth link actually. They will guide you through how to make your first pull request and everything you need to know about Git and GitHub for those of us who don't have an idea of how these things work, because there are also a little bit of technical or practical aspects to contributing to open source, like forking a repository, creating commits, adding. I assumed everybody, since you participate in Hackathon, already knows this, but if you don't already, the second and fourth link would guide you through that process and up to the point where you create your first pull request. And then you can find open source issues. If your problem has always been, oh, I don't know where to find issues to work on, the third link can help you to do that. So I'm going to share a link to this slide with the organizer so they can share with you much later on. And thank you very much for joining me today. I'll be available to take your questions if you have anyone. Thank you, Isabella.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Amarachi. Thank you, thank you. So does anybody have any questions? It was such an exciting session. It was really informative. It was really informative. I don't know for others, but one of the major things I picked is that research is paramount before you decide to contribute to open source. Research, 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 because if you don't do your research, if you don't do your findings, you might end up contributing to a project that is no longer active, or probably something that somebody is already working on, and at the end of the day you discover that your efforts have been wasted. So instead of having wasted efforts, it's best you do that bit of research. Research is free. It's going to just take your time, but at the end of the day it's going to help you discover what you need to do and the direction you ought to take. So let me not talk too much, because I know that Amarachi has already given us a total breakdown, and I'm sure you got as much value that I did. So does anybody have any question regarding this before we move forward? Okay, for others that have asked questions questions earlier. I still see your questions, and we are going to take your questions. I think now is the best time to take your questions. Okay. Ignatius Francis asks, what's the difference between translating a code and interpreting a code? Amarachi, please, could you take that for us?
Please, can you take the question again? Transmitting.
What is the difference between translating a code and interpreting a code?
Okay. This is taking me back to university computer science, and the question was kind of impromptu, but I'll try. Right. Um, Translation is in, I think, interpreting and compiling are the two ways of translating. So you already mentioned it, Isabella. When you, the sorry, the programming languages like Python, JavaScript that we write are usually called high level languages. And as
Yeah,
Isabella mentioned earlier, during the quiz, she mentioned that we were taught that the computer has a way of its own understanding, right? The computer does not know
exactly.
who are you, or our normal English words. It doesn't understand it. The computer only understands zeros and ones. It only understands strings
Yeah,
in binary.
binary.
So now, how
Yeah,
exactly will the computer be able to understand our JavaScript? Remember, JavaScript is written in English language. Python is written in English language. Many of these are programming languages are written in English. The computer does not understand those. It has to find a way to um, change those things we've written to binary form, which is the only thing it understands. So that is where translation comes. So we have two types of translation, if I'm correct. Please, this is subject to Googling, right? Because I did not read, it's not today I finished school, and it's been years. I talked
yeah,
about something like this. But translation, there are two types. We have compiling and we have interpreting. So there are some languages that get interpreted, like our ancient Q basic. It gets interpreted. So by interpretation, we mean the interpreter reads codes line by line, line by line. So after you must have written your Q basic code, when it's time to interpret, the system reads your code line by line and interprets it to binary form for the computer to read it. That is the reason why when your error is being shown, it shows you your error line by line as well. But when it comes to compiling, the system will read the entire code. That is why compiling takes longer, right? So even if you've written 1,000 lines of code, the computer will take its time, that's the compiler now, will take its time to read through the 1,000 lines of code before it can compile. So it takes it the whole
yeah.
lines of code, but the interpreter does it one line after the other. And that is why, if I remember correctly, we were taught that compiled languages take harder to debug, because now they are going, the compiler gives you an error message, but maybe it may not be able to give you the exact line where that error happened because it did not read your code line by line. And another thing that I remember now that we learned about compilers is the fact that the moment your compiler meets an error, the whole compilation process stops automatically. The moment it, because it's reading your whole lines of code. So the moment it meets an error, the compilation process stops. Yes, this is what I can remember. Well, please feel free to Google this.
Thank you so much. I think that already answers the question. Ignatius, I do not know if that answered the question on your end. Was it as explanatory as you wanted it to be, or do you now understand the difference as she has explained? Okay, let me see if I think there was another question somewhere around here. Okay, what do we get? Okay, I think that is all of the. Okay, yeah, Ignatius says thanks for the answer. I got the difference. So that was
Yeah,
really
Ignatius.
that was really explanatory. Let me. I think there is another question on YouTube. Let me just hop in there and see. Okay. What technologies and programming languages did you use to develop your project? Are there any specific tools or libraries that were crucial to its development? Please, Afro Streamer, I would like to know, please just let us know ASAP which project are you referring to so that we can answer your question as clearly as possible. Okay, while we wait for Afro Streamer to let us know which project he's referring to, if you have any questions, be it regarding what our speakers have discussed today, or if you are a team participating in the hackathon and there is something you would like us to discuss, please drop your questions. Okay, so Amarachi, this is actually for you. Afro Streamer is trying to ask, how best do one handle conflicts in open source collaboration, especially when working with developers from diverse backgrounds and cultures?
Yeah,
Did you
thank
get
you,
that?
Afro Streamer, for that question. Yes, I heard it, Isabella.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for that question, Afro Streamer. One, there are like I have a couple of answers to this, but the first one, which I always recommend, is that every open source community must have a code of conduct. Now, a code of
Yeah.
conduct is like a rule. It doesn't care that you're Nigerian. It doesn't care that you're Puerto Rican. It's a rule, and there are quite standard rules for open source communities that a lot of open source communities adapt. If you go to some open source websites and you check, can you still hear me, please? I want to be sure.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so if you go to some open source websites, you read their code of conduct. Down there at the bottom, you would see something like adapted from so 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 and so community. It's because those code of conducts are quite standard, and a lot of communities, instead of writing new ones that may be biased or that may not be inclusive, you just adapt the ones already existing in communities. So now, when you have code of conduct and there is a conflict within your open source community, the first thing you have to do as a community manager, as a maintainer, is to find what part of that code of conduct the conflict is either violating. What is the cause of the conflict? That's the number one. So conflicts can arise due to a lot of things. It could be due to language usage, it could be due to one thing or the other. So you find a part of your code of conduct where this particular conflicts affect, and you should already have a documented action in your code of conduct. So I'll advise that you first have a code of conduct, and it's hard that a conflict would arise that does not already have a point of address in your code of conduct, and then you do whatever your code of conduct says. Then number two is that you have to dissociate the people from the problem. So most times when there are conflicts as humans, we always want to like you know mix the two. We want to see the people as problematic or the people as difficult, but you have to remove the people from the problem and address the problem head on. If it's something that requires you to call a meeting with the involved parties, or requires you to send a DM to one of the involved parties, if it even involves you to remove or ban someone temporarily or permanently, depending on the nature of the conflict, you have to do it, but don't do it based on emotion, right? Because sometimes these things could get emotional. So you have to remove the people. That's why I said remove the people, so that you can have the clarity of not being biased. You have the clarity of addressing the issue. If it's, let's say, a sexual harassment, for instance, if you feel like, oh, this person is one of our highest contributors, I don't want to kick him out of my community, whereas your code of conduct is already very explicit that if someone does this, chase the person away or ban the person. You don't have to bring emotions into things like this, right? So address the issue only and try for a way to reach a soft landing if it's not a very big one. And also, if it's an issue that escalated so fast such that there were even other members of the community that weren't particularly involved, but they heard about it, then somehow when you finish resolving it, you have to come out and also let them know that this happened and this is the steps you've taken to rectify the issues, and that this is the part of the code of conduct, right, that this issue violated, and this is why you took this action. Because your open source projects have to be very a safe place, if I should use that term. People should be comfortable contributing and being part of your community, and it is your job, no matter how tough the decision could be, to ensure that you always make your open source community inclusive and as diverse as possible, where everybody feels safe, where everybody's opinions counts, where everyone feels respected and not violated.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you. That was really elaborate. So the bottom line is to put emotions aside and do what you need to do. We have another question, which is also from Afro Streamer, and he's asking, how do you prioritize security in your open source project? Are there specific security practices or tools you rely on?
Thank you again for that question. First of all, I am mostly a non-technical contributor to open source communities. Like, I manage communities, I manage open source communities, and then sometimes I also contribute as a technical writer. I am not usually very involved in the security aspects, but then I don't know if this thing I'm going to say counts as security, but I think it does. In the open source community that I manage, which is Open Terms Archives, we use GitHub Actions. I don't know if you've heard about GitHub Actions before. We use GitHub Actions to automate a lot of checks in our open source repositories. So what this does is that it helps us to like run a lot of background checks so that we don't have to manually do it all the time. So if you contribute a code to Open Terms Archives today, the GitHub Actions, which is like an automatic workflow thing, takes its time to check through the code you've contributed. If there are errors in the code, if there are things that are not supposed to be there, it will flag them. So I think this is actually a very important security thing. So it's because sometimes, manual reviews sometimes can get a little bit of
Yeah,
like, we are humans, of course, some
muddled up.
errors can be there. Then yeah, but then with those automated checks, it always ensures that whatever code we are merging is accurate. Yes.
Okay. So I just want to ask this. So in a situation where it's the automated system flags up an error, does it inform the contributor that an error was found so they could come back and kind of like debug or try to find whatever is wrong?
Okay, so when someone contributes a code to the code base, and the whole checks run, it runs right there on your page. Like, it will just run, it's usually like three, and then it will tick the ones that pass the check and put a little cancel on the ones
Okay.
that didn't. But now some contributors, because they just contributed the code, they don't even look at those checks, because like they've contributed is that they've contributed. So now it's our job as reviewers to come and look at
Yeah.
what exactly is the problem with this code that was contributed. Now, if these checks are things that we think the contributor can correct from his or her end, right? We can give
Mm-hmm.
it as a review. When you're reviewing a pull request, or yeah, a pull request, there are usually three options. You can approve, you can just comment, or you can request changes. So you can make a comment requesting a change from that contributor, saying, hey, we have some automated checks failing, and this is the reason for this. Do you mind making so and
Yeah.
so correction in your code, and then making a new commit? But if it's something that you think is too minor and don't want it to linger, you don't want this to cause a back and forth between you and the contributor, or you feel, oh, this is a first time contributor, I don't want to fix him up front, one point, let me quickly resolve this and merge his pull request or her pull request. So he or she would have the joy and satisfaction that comes from having a merged pull request. We, the reviewers, will just go ahead and rectify whatever flagged that error and then merge the pull request.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that answer. I think that was Afro Streamer is also saying thank you for this. And just to add, Afro Streamer says he plans to start um, his or her journey in open source. So if you're really serious about that, you just won a soul. Yeah, so he or she is serious in starting a career in open source. So if you're really interested, ensure you search out for Amarachi Johnson-Ubah on LinkedIn, or should it be via mail? Yeah,
Yeah.
you can find her on LinkedIn just by searching for Amarachi Johnson-Ubah. I am so certain that she would be happy to lead you through this process. Um, Someone else is asking how to handle merge conflicts. Okay, Naya, would you be happy to come up to answer some of these questions? Yeah, good to have you, Naya.
Hey
I
everyone.
know.
Hey. Okay. Excellent question. So how do you handle merge conflicts? So I'm sure Amarachi has all the expertise and experience. So when I try to do or handle merge conflicts, I am trying to figure out it's different for every single merge conflict, right? It's this is also something that all engineers are going to have to deal with. And sometimes it's fun to woo, have a person looking over your shoulder or just helping you go through a merge conflict if you're trying to do it for the first time.
Yeah.
But in general, I think the approach is to try and ensure that there are as few conflicts as possible. And also, like when you're dealing with a merge conflict, in order to prevent a merge conflict, you try to push your code directly either to GitHub or GitLab or whatever. You push your code as much as possible and as frequently as possible. And I think Amarachi had mentioned this as well. But when you're dealing with a merge conflict, you just number one, like take a breath, take a breather. It's gonna be okay, and go through your code line by line and try to make sure that you're understanding what's happening, and then what the code that's in the repo. Um, uh, that's in the repo already, make sure that there's not going to be any issues when both of them are happening at the same time or when both of them are run at the same time, for example. Sometimes people come into merge conflicts and it's because there's some repetitive code that's happening. And then that can cause some issues down the line um, with your application. So you want to make sure that you're not repeating code that's already in the repository, in the remote repository, and you're trying to make sure that functionality is not the functionality that you're bringing into the code space is not going to break anything that already exists there. But what I do normally for handling the merge conflict is just try to be patient. Every single merge conflict is going to be different because you're going to be dealing with different things. And if you have any issues or errors, your community is where you lean on for help, right? If you're like, I can't figure out how to fix this merge conflict, that's when the community comes in and takes a look and comes to help you. So definitely lean on your community as much as possible when going through a merge conflict. Hope that's helpful.
Yes, that is really helpful. I love when you say you need to breathe.
Absolutely.
That is a key factor because when you have errors, when you have conflicts, and especially when you are unable to identify where the issue is coming from, it can be so frustrating, and so it is necessary for you to just take a step back and especially go to your community for someone to see things from a fresh perspective. It's really important because you could just be staring at the problem, and because you're so focused on what you're about to achieve or what you're supposed to achieve, you do not even see what the problem is. So a fresh perspective is really key. And Naya, we have another question here. I'd like you to take. Um, where is it? Where is it? Um, I think Precious asked. I can't find the question anymore, but I remember it off heart. So this person asks, as a developer, how can, as an experienced developer, how can they sell themselves out? I don't know if you get that. How can they like put themselves out there, probably land that dream job, land that dream role, and all the goodie packs that when you get into tech, you are promised that, oh, you're going to make 7 figures, 8 figures, you're going to drive in a Ferrari, you're going to do this, you're going to do yeah. So is that basically, that's like the question. So how do you go from like 0 to scale of 100?
Yes. Well, we could talk about that for hours and hours and days. However, so
Honestly.
I know that's the dream. And tell me when y'all make 7 figures and 8 figures, because help me out. I'm not making that, but I wish I was. But I would
We need the manual to navigate that.
exactly. That's right. But definitely as an experienced developer, how you can improve your development skills, or how you can like really make sure that you are shining as much as possible. I think that a lot of the times folk think that they can just be a good developer and that that should be enough to get them a job. However,
Yeah.
what people also don't understand is that a lot of getting a job, right, is powered through your network and through networking in general, in tech, and
Exactly.
specifically. Yeah. So it's very important for people to know you and know your work. And in order to know you and know your work has to be public, right? It has to be shown somewhere. So it has to not just
Yeah.
live on GitHub, but also you need to be talking about your work and the things that you are learning as much as possible, and doing that publicly. So I know some people will
Mhm.
say, they want to try and stay off of social media as much as possible, etc. But I really think that social media, for example, is a vital tool that allows people to showcase what they're learning. So it doesn't have to be something like Twitter or Facebook. It could be LinkedIn, which is a professional social media tool that people use in order to showcase their wins, their losses, just their journeys. And if people continually see and are seeing, oh, like this person is putting out really great content, or we don't even have to
Yeah.
call it content. We can just say that you're documenting what you are learning publicly, and showing, teaching other people how to do things that you just learned how to do yourself. That is really incredible and really valuable as well. And that then posits you, that then shows that you are, like I said it in my own talk, it shows that you are a thought leader in the tech space, and that people should
Exactly.
go to you for guidance. Um, and that you are experienced enough to be able to teach people what you have learned, right? That is a skill in which hiring managers want to see, right? They want to see that you can lead a team. I'm talking specifically for more experienced developers, who have years of experience under their belt. If they're looking to show off all this experience, these are some skills that you can practice, um, uh, and practice live and in person, which are very interesting, and it sets you apart from your peers. Because like I said, people normally just they write code and they push it to GitHub or something like that, and then they apply for a job and they expect that they should either get a job or get an interview just based off of that. But you need to have credibility behind your name, right? People need to think of you when they're hiring for a role, and they're like, oh, actually, I know Isabella is incredible because I see Isabella every day teaching other people what Isabella is learning. So I think I would love to hire Isabella. Let's get her to apply for this role. That's what you want to cultivate as much as possible. And that's one of the ways that lots of people get jobs these days, is by teaching in public, by learning in public, and by showcasing all the things that they are learning. And that then writing, of course, writing as well, writing blog posts, going on these speaking at events, talking about the things that they're learning, that then makes them seen in the tech community as someone who other people should listen to. And those are the people who often get a lot more job offers than the ones who just write code and then push it to GitHub and then think that that's all they have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Nyah, for that. I think basically we've actually touched upon personal
Mhm.
branding, because that's what it boils down to. For
Yes.
a lot of people who code, they think it is just good enough for me to know how to code,
Mhm.
but knowing how to code is not good enough to land you the job. It's all about you knowing how to sell yourself, and not just selling yourself, but knowing how to sell yourself so well. Some people are really skilled in coding, but they're not skilled in showing up on social media to say,
Mm.
hey, I know how to do this thing. It's just like you having let me say, the best application, and you just keep it to yourself, like, oh, I have this. And we finally have the internet where you can put it out there and let people know, oh, I've built this thing, and you could test it. These days people sign up for a whole lot of things, and even when you ask people, okay, hey guys, this is what I have just built, could you test, could you give me feedback,
Mhm.
it all helps in the process. I remember I attended a speaking session some time ago, and the speaker, actually the person of Blessing Abeng, a lot of people know her. Um, she said something about documenting your journey. When you document your journey, you are leaving a testament that you know your onion. That is just the end game of it. You know your onion, and people can rely on you, people can call up to you. So document it, whether you had a bug and you fixed it. Talk about your story, talk about your process. Sometimes I get amazed when I see people put up some content on social media, especially on LinkedIn, which I kind of like frequent, and I'll be like, wow, this content is really interesting. Why did I not think of putting up this content? So no matter how big or how small, it mustn't actually be about your wins. It could be about your failure. And what you're telling people is that you accept failure, and you understand, you do not shy away from solving problems. So that's actually like the bottom line. And I hope we've answered this question in total. I think we've actually done justice to it. And yeah, we've done justice to it. And talking about branding on the, I think that should be 27th, which is like the main event. We're having a branding expert coming to talk more about branding. So, to all the developers out there, to all the techies, or even the non-techie like myself, so not techie like myself, we are going to be learning about branding, selling yourself as a brand, because it's not just enough to have all the skills, all of the certificates, and not have that six figures sitting in your bank account. Man, we can do more. So thank you so much, Nyah, for coming up. I just want to check YouTube to be sure I've not left out any question. Okay. Okay, I think that is all of the questions. And again, this is Spacer's Hack-Conf 2023. I don't know who else is excited, but really, I have been anticipating, I have been looking forward to this event, because It is our first ever virtual hackathon in collaboration with Couchbase. And trust me, there is more to come, because when it comes to CodeSpace, we are always in the business of bringing you all the best opportunities. We bring you the best of internship opportunities, job opportunities, learning opportunities, and then hackathon opportunities like this for you to grow and advance in your careers. And we cannot even forget to mention our um, Twitter Spaces, talks. I think the last session we had was with Samuel Adedoyin, where we had a career talk, which was brilliantly amazing. And so, if you are not part of the CodeSpace community, I really don't know what you are losing. In fact, that is the best I can put it. You are losing if you're not part of this awesome communities where Gen Z techies are being connected to global opportunities. Trust me, it can only get better. And we have our link for, in case you want to join in our community, because definitely what's there not to love about us? We are fun loving, we are happy people, we are a family. We're a family, and we are expanding every day. And we have our extension, the extension of this family as Couchbase. So we are growing, and we're inviting you to grow with us. So you can check our website, which is www.codespaceafrica.com. Join us on Slack, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and do not forget the challenge. Do not forget the challenge for you to win a swag box from CodeSpace and Couchbase. Like I earlier mentioned, we just have three simple rules to follow for you to win swag box from CodeSpace. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm back. My internet connection messed me up a bit. So I was saying we have just three simple rules. You can head over to our Twitter, our LinkedIn, or our Instagram, and you'll see how to join and participate in the challenge. And if you're also joining us from YouTube, you can see the link to join our community. Just click the link and fill out the form, and we'll respond to you in no short time. Thank you for everyone that has joined the Spaces Hack-Conf 2023 opening ceremony. And for the hackathon participants, you know how it's going to be already. As from today, you're jumping into your team meetings, you're jumping into your building sessions. And if you have any questions regarding what to do, how to build, questions on how to use the Couchbase database, do not hesitate to reach out to us via email, because you have to do your best too. You cannot come and just give us bare minimum. Give us your best, the very best. That is what we are asking of you, because by 27th, yeah, by 27th, 28th, would have 27th will have the conference, and 28th everything they are going to be pitching your project. And I can remember what our speakers have said, especially Amarachi and Nyah, how they hammered on your project. It doesn't just stop at you participated in the Spacers Hack-Conf 2023. No, it's a learning experience, it's a learning curve, and it is something that you can showcase today, tomorrow, and even after the hackathon. You can even continue to build upon your idea if you so desire. Like if you can see, every major social media we use today, it all started like a child's play. Developers just playing around with their skills, and today you can see how far Facebook has grown, you can see how far Amazon has grown, you can see how far what's it called, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Twitter, or should I say X. You can see how far all of these social applications have grown. So do not just underrate that, oh, it's just an hackathon project. Please come off it. It is more than a hackathon project. So give it your 100%. Like I said in the beginning of the opening ceremony, it's not just 70%, it's not 85%, neither is it 95%. We expect 100% from you, and we are so sure that you are giving it to us back to back 100%. So for us not to waste so much time, it is exactly 6:01, and it is time to it's time for us to sign out. I am sure that you've enjoyed today's session, and trust me, 27th we have lineup of speakers that would blow your mind, because I want at the end of this Spacers Hackathon, I want to see people tweeting or commenting on social media that, oh, I attended the Spacers Hack-Conf 2023, and the insight I gained has really helped me advance my career, so, and so. That's what I want to see. And do not forget, keep on using the hashtag Spacers Hack-Conf 2023, because it doesn't just stop here today. We still have the hackathon teams. They're going to be working behind the scene. And while they're working behind the scene, we are going to be preparing our minds to listen to their pitch, to see their ideas, because we are all going to critique, we are all going to see whether they've done their best or whether they've done just 55%. Thank you guys. And again, I want to emphasize, don't stop using the hashtag Sisters Have Conf 2023. You can be like I and my team. We've included it on our social media profile. If you check me out on Twitter, you see Isabella Inaoro, hashtag Spacers HackConf 2023. Yes, I carry this thing for my head. I carry the matter for my head. So, as part of our community, as part of our family, ensure you do the same. When you wake up in the morning, just tweet about Spacers HackConf 2023. Let the whole internet be wondering which one is Spacers HackConf 2023, and let them check us out. Thank you, guys. So we've officially come to the end of the opening ceremony of Spacers HackConf 2023. Thank you for joining us from StreamYard, from YouTube, and wherever you're watching us from. I'm sure it was an interesting session for every one of us, and I'm so glad that we all appreciate all of our speakers. I've seen everybody saying, "Oh, Nyah is fun, Nyah is this, and Amarachi." We love all of the sessions. So, if you do not want to miss more of these amazing speakers, join us 27th and 28th. But for now, peace out. Oh yes, thank you, thank you. Goodbye, everybody.